Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at why the Bank of Japan is going full Weimar. Yes, full brrr, with a printing press. Before I start, though, I'd like to thank all of you, all the long-term viewers, people who have been with the channel since the beginning, the new subscribers, for all your support, for your participation. It's like a community. I appreciate your comments, your messages. I appreciate your support through PayPal, Patreon, through the Teespring store. And just wanted to tell you that there's a new function activated. It's called Super Thanks. You can thank me through that as well. It's on YouTube. So Weimar, that's a reference, of course, to the Weimar Republic back in the early 1920s, Germany. A lot of you know what happened there, of course. Some of you might not know, so we'll go through it quickly. Basically, the Weimar Republic was a result of the fall of the German Empire after World War I. They lost the war. The Kaiser Wilhelm, had to abdicate, and a republic was formed. They had the Constitutional Convention in Weimar, which is a city right in the middle of Germany. It was quite a peaceful place at the time. They had a lot of revolutions throughout the German territory right after the war, a lot of political mayhem, a lot of assassinations. So they had to find a place that was accessible for most Germans. So it was right in the middle of Germany and relatively peaceful. So that's where they drew up the Constitution. The capital was still, of course, in Berlin, and they called it the Weimar Republic. Germans had to inflate it a lot during the war, like all the other countries. They never really borrowed the money, or actually they borrowed the money. They inflated by borrowing. They didn't tax that much as let's say Britain did, or the US did during that period. So after the war, they had to keep borrowing and printing. And by 1922, the summer of 22, exactly 100 years ago, the currency started collapsing, taking off. And I've got here some items from that period. I've got here a 1 million mark note from 1923. February 1923. So we were already in the process of going through the roof, or the currency was collapsing. And you might think, how can the currency be collapsing if you've got 1 million? Well, that means that you need a lot more of the currency to buy anything. That means the value, it's losing value. And just to give you an idea, we've got here as well from August 1922, 2 million mark, 2 million mark. And these here, I've got a whole batch of 10,000 mark notes, and they look pretty good quality, as you can see, 10,000 marks. And if I just move this here, let's see, it tells me it's from January 19th, 2022. It's underneath here. I don't really want to pull it out, but that was before the real collapse started in the summer of 22. So just 10,000, and the notes are a lot better quality, not just like a little. I mean, I can tell you the difference in quality of this and this is pretty big. And this is already by July 23, just a few months before everything imploded. So what's the Bank of Japan got to do with Weimar? Well, many of you know that the Bank of Japan is a pioneer of QE, or money printing. And some of you don't think QE is money printing because money within the banking system is called reserves, but it is money. It's just bank money. And what the Bank of Japan does, and what the Reichsbank did back then, They just created out of thin air these reserves. They take those reserves in their accounts and they go into the market and they buy bonds from the banks, from the primary dealers. And when they buy these bonds, the bond prices go up and the yields or interest rates go down. And that allows governments to keep borrowing. And when they borrow, they get cash. When they get this cash, they spend. Is it any wonder that government spending as a percentage of GDP in Europe and Japan is way above 50%? In the US is just under 50%, but I guarantee you it's going to get a lot higher. And of course, the Bank of Japan has been doing QE. It's the pioneer since 2002. And I've said it many times, I've spoken about this, how back in the 1790s in post-revolutionary France, they tried the same experiment with the assignats. They said, oh, we're only going to do one emission of assignats to help kickstart the economy, right? Is the old Keynesian fallacy was still alive, well, was still existent then. And they couldn't stop because it's not the right thing to do. It's not really healthy. You can get the economy pick up for a few months, but then again, it falls back down and you have to keep issuing and you can never stop. And that's what's happening in Japan. And it's also starting to happen in Europe. A few weeks ago, I spoke about how Italian JGB yields were going through the roof. They've gone from under 1% last year to almost 4.5% up until a couple of weeks ago. And it was creating a problem for all the bond markets around the world. Speculators were testing the Bank of Japan. We're going to come into that in a minute, though. But and I warned about a new sovereign debt crisis in Europe because we had one already in 2011, 2012. And the same culprits that were collapsing or going bankrupt back then, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, their bond markets are starting to lose support, mainly because the ECB has been telling us now that they're going to reverse policy. They're going to start raising rates in July and stop QT. And if they don't do QE, those bond markets, especially in Italy and Greece, they're going to start falling. Investors are going to be selling those bonds. Yields are going to be going up. So the ECB had to call an emergency meeting, basically saying, what Mario Draghi said back in 2011, 2012, or 2012, July 2012, he promised that he would support the bond markets and do whatever it takes. But whatever it takes means printing, right? And that's where we come to the Bank of Japan now. So in the last few weeks, while not only the Italian and PIIGS yields started going up again. PIIGS is the acronym for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. Bond markets around the world, in the US, in the UK, in Japan, were being tested. And the Bank of Japan has a policy of yield curve control, which means they promise the market that they will peg the 10-year JGB yield at 0.25%. What that means is that if investors start selling the 10-year JGB and yields rise above that 0.25, they will come in and buy an unlimited amount of JGBs in order to bring that yield back down to 0.25. And why is that important? Well, because Japan is up to here almost 300% debt to GDP, government debt to GDP. And if yields start rising, the government in Japan will collapse. And the other thing as well, there's a lot of pension money in Japan. And when they keep these rates low in Japan, this pension money flows into Europe and the US, and it keeps yields low here. So it's important for everyone. And as you can see here by this chart that's just come out, the BOJ recently has had to accelerate the QE, as you can see. It's a 20-year chart. They've gone full Weimar. They are printing 11 trillion yen a week. That was the week ending the 21st of June. I had to use Google because the numbers are getting really big. That's the equivalent of $81 billion a week. And if you annualize that, that's over 4 trillion, which is huge. If you look at the size of the Japanese economy, I'm not saying they're going to be doing this every week, but yes, we're in trouble. And for the Japanese investor, for the Japanese public, there's only one way to protect themselves if they have a lot of yen balances in their bank accounts. And that is, of course, gold and silver as well, to some extent. Just look at the price of gold in Japanese yen. It's at an all-time high. It's around 250,000 yen. And back during the Weimar Republic, that's what happened as well. The Reichsmark collapsed versus the pound and the dollar, which were as good as gold. So I expect to see this happen everywhere around the world. It's starting in Japan because Japan started before everyone else. They started the QE before, and they can't stop it, just like the French couldn't with the assignats. That's why I expect our central banks in Europe, in the US, in Australia, New Zealand, all to have to go the way of the Bank of Japan. And yes, that emergency meeting of the ECB a few weeks ago helped Italian bond yields come off a little bit, but I don't think it's over. I said a couple of weeks ago or so in one of my videos that I expect us to see a sovereign debt crisis this summer. And yes, keep an eye on this Italian BTP 10-year yield. I'll put a link to where you can keep track of it in the description. Keep an eye also on the JGB yield. I'll do the same. And just before we look at the markets, just wanted to show you this chart, because this is the reason the Bank of Japan has had to go full Weimar. There's been a challenge to this peg during London and New York hours, as you can see here. And what does that mean? Well, hedge fund speculators, they've come in during non-Japanese trading hours and started selling the JGB. And you can see these spikes show this. We've got about 6 of these in the last few weeks. And then when the Japanese market opens, the Bank of Japan comes in and has to buy. And that's why we've seen the spike of 11 trillion in a week. So yeah, full Weimar. I think there's no way out. The only other way out is that they stop all the printing, they raise rates, and they collapse everything. They collapse governments, a deflationary collapse. So I think they're going to choose the crack up boom or the hyperinflationary collapse that we saw in Weimar, Germany. So I am a little later today because I'm trying something new here. I'm using different camera, and we recorded early as usual, but there was a problem, and it was okay, but it wasn't perfect. So hopefully this will be okay. I'm sorry for the delay. So it's just gone past 10 a.m. London. We got spot gold at 1826. It's up about $3. Silver's up 13 cents at 21.28. High's been 38, low 02. Dow futures up 185. NASDAQ up 72. S&P up 22. FTSE's up 70 points. Eurostoxx 50 is up 41. To the currency, sterling is up slightly, 122.74. The euro as well, up slightly, 105.93. The dollar is up 0.2% versus the yen, 135.75. Dollars down 0.2 versus the Swiss franc, 95.43. And the dollar is down 0.2 versus the yuan at 668. Let's check the Russian ruble or the ruble. Well, the dollar is down 2% at 53 versus the ruble. We'll go straight to the general commodities today. We won't look at the other currencies because we're in a hurry. Nothing personal against those other currencies. So WTI crude is up 1.5%. It's back above 110. Brent is up 1.5%, almost back up to 113. High grade copper is up 2% at 384. US nat gas is up, yeah, well, actually it's unchanged at 654. And a look at the 10-year yield. 10-year yield as well has come back up. Actually, we had the period when the ECB called its emergency meeting on the 15th of June up until I would say last week. The 10-year yield almost reached 3.5 around mid-June, and then it came down to almost 3% last week. But now it's going back up, and we're up 2 basis points overnight at almost 322. So there you go. Let's keep an eye on the bond market. It's a very important market because it sets the price of credit for the economy, for the markets, for everything. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.